Welcome, everybody. Since this is a short presentation, I'm not going to give a large preamble and just hand over to the friends from Lund.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this presentation about adding SDGs to your research in your research CRIS system. This is the example of how we did at Lund University. And my name is Ellen. This is Hannah, and Karolina is on the bench because we only got 15 minutes. So we want to give you a short introduction to Lund University before we start, so you understand what we had to work with when we started this project. We have 9 faculties and some extra stuff, which means that we do research about basically everything.
Except horses.
Except horses. We don't like horses, no. Apparently. I don't know. We have about 10,000 researchers. That means 10,000 profiles in the research portal. So keep that in mind when we go into what we did and why. And we have had PR since 2016. And we have the following modules: research output, activities, projects, awards, prizes, and infrastructures. We also have the portal in 2 versions, Swedish and English. Let's not go into that. So, background. We had the call that Lund University wanted to add sustainable development goals, tagging on persons, units, research outputs, and projects. And we had an aim to create good quality of SDG data with minimum workload for researchers and support staff, both to add SDGs and to handle errors. So you remember those 10,000 researchers I was talking about earlier? Say that 20% are not happy. That means 2,000 tickets, 2,000 complaints. If 1% isn't happy, that means 100 tickets and 100 complaints. So it's quite important to us, really. So then we ended up having a discussion about automatic or manual adding of SDGs. So with 100% automatic adding, we saw a couple of issues that we want to bring up with you today. The SDG queries and the data are not perfect. Don't pretend that they are, because they aren't. The SDG queries work less well for some disciplines, biology, for instance, and languages. If you have something in other languages than English, it's not going to get picked up as easily. And then we were concerned about the wide effects when propagating wrong SDGs to other content. So if we have one research output, which has 10 researchers connected to it, and there's one wrong SDG on that research output, that means that 10 researcher profiles will get the wrong SDG tagging, which is terrible when it comes to cleaning up that mess. And then we had worries about the changes of the research, the strings that automatic tagging is based on. Because if we pull out statistics this year and the strings change, our statistic is going to look very different the next year. So we wanted the data to be stable. And also, researchers are very sensitive to incorrect tagging, especially on their profile. We had this experience when we launched fingerprints, and we will never talk about that again. What about manual adding? Well, that means that 10,000 researchers will go through their profiles and their research outputs and their projects. We're not going to even delve into that. It's not going to happen. So we had to find something in between. So the early way of adding SDGs today, after the launch, is that we have manual adding for persons, projects, and organizations. And the reason for this is that we only get few new records each year. So it's manageable, and also there's not much on them when they're added into the system. So the automatic tagging doesn't do much anyway. And we have automatic tagging for all our research outputs because we get 10,000 new every year. So that's a lot for us. But we didn't want to start with an empty data set. So we decided that we would create an initial SDG tagging on all content before the launch. And Hannah will tell you more about that now.
Yeah. So we use the pure API rather than using the SDG job. So I will go through how we did that. So the working method for creating an initial SDG data set, we first of all ran the SDG tagging on all research outputs. And then we changed it to only new. So from now on, it's only the new ones coming into the database. So in order to avoid that already validated research output should get new SDGs when the search string changes. Then we perform some additional tagging based on Swedish translated queries. As you who have by language pure knows, this is only working for the search strings only work for the English part. So we did some homemade Swedish queries, and we added those. Then we used our expert library staff network to remove wrong SDGs, finding false friends and related neighbors. So when words are used in different disciplines, and also triggering a tagging of an SDG in a wrong place. And this was a very tiresome step because it took a lot of time and a lot of effort, but it was also maybe the most important learning step because we learned things that we can use in the future. Then we used the cleaned research output dataset to compute and add SDGs to persons, organization, and projects with the API, so not with the pure job. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. And then we carried out some additional cleaning of the dataset before we launched it to our researcher to evaluate it. Some of the learnings we did was there were kind of funny SDGs added. We have one example there with energy, that a lot of articles about diabetes got the tagging of sustainable, what is it called? Affordable and clean energy. And we also have this with archaeology underwater, where people digging up old pots underwater, and they got clean water and life below water. So there were a lot of those things that we found. The timeline for this, we had an internal and an external launch. So we started in April by running the SDG job on all research output, and then switched it to only new. And in mid-May, we gave all our editors of research output the task to do a quality check within their own faculties. And it wasn't supposed to be that long of a gap, but we were lacking 2 hands, really literally, in that period, because I broke both my hands, so they have to work a little bit harder, the other ones. But I came back, and they are working. So we had a deadline for the editors in August, and then in late August we did this writing of with the API and writing the SDGs on persons, projects, and organization. And then we had an internal launch where all researchers could, for about a month, review the tagging that were on their profile before we launched it on the Pure portal. One thing that we were thinking about is, what do you expect to find when you go into the portal? What do you expect in order? How many SDGs do you want to find when you're looking at different kind of content on our Pure portal? Of course, if everything is tagged with all SDGs, it's not searchable. If none of the things in the portal is tagged with SDG, it's not searchable. So we were elaborating a little bit with how many percentage of a person's, for instance, research output should trigger SDG on the person's profile. And we were playing with it. Should it be 1% of your publications that have a specific SDG in order to get it on your profile, or should it be 10%? But in the end, we decided to give all persons all SDGs related to their profile all SDGs, because we realized there will be very few or maybe non-SDGs, and especially for those researchers that mainly publish themselves in other language than English. On the organization, however, we did some cleaning, because there were a lot of, it was a long tail, so to say. So there were maybe 3 or 4 that got like 35% or 20% of the publications, and then there were less than 1%, and then we removed them from the organizational profile. So onwards, we're going to keep on doing the automatic SDG tagging on new research output, and we are using the lessons that we learned while cleaning the data. So we have some things that we are looking extra into. And we're also keeping track of changes in the pure SDI queries. We're going to keep on adding Swedish queries, because we need to do that. And watching out the areas where the auto tagging was problematic. And as Ellen said, persons, project, and organization will only be updated manually. And we will, continue to learn. So that was that. We know that we got the best slot in the end of the conference, but we are happy to discuss these questions now on the 3.5 minutes that we got. And otherwise, you're more than welcome to contact any of us regarding this. Yes. Okay.
We have a question, young lady. You have a question over here.
Yeah.
Thanks for the wonderful presentation. I had a question about the manual adding. Obviously, you did a lot of work on the initial stuff. So with the manual adding going forward, are you getting the researchers themselves to edit, or is it going to be you three tirelessly working to add this stuff in?
Oh, no. That's the short question. No, but I think that the SDG will be a part of the normal, yearly review of your profile. So we have other keywords lists that they need to address to their profile. They need to update their photo, their research interest, and we're just gonna, put it in the pile of things that you should review once a year or something like that. When it comes to organization, that will probably be us, or we have also faculty representatives that would do that. And the projects, that will be a tricky one, I think, but we're still struggling a little bit of getting the projects in. But I hope that the visibility that comes with the SDGs would actually lift the entire usage of Pure at Lund University. So I don't know if it answered your question, but I think it's, yeah.
There's one.
Did you try ChatGPT? Because I asked ChatGPT to make suggest an SDG with a Swedish abstract from your Pure system, and it does seem to work nicely. So I guess we don't need Elsevier anymore to generate it.
The answer to that question is yes. We did use ChatGPT during the summer when we were reviewing which SDGs got tagged with different things. So when I did clean up of the projects, and then I went through it to just do a check when there was an abstract, and then I printed the abstract and then I asked ChatGPT, which SDGs do you suggest here? Which are the ones that are the most common? And I compared it to what had happened just to make sure that it seemed to have been correct. And mostly it was, but ChatGPT is also a tricky tool to use because it makes stuff up. So I had to be very careful with what I asked it and how. So, but the answer is yes. Question in the front? Yeah.
This was an excellent talk, thank you. My question is around the library network cleaning. Do you have sort of a rough proportion of how many had to be fixed during that process of records?
Karolina, do you remember?
Yeah, we actually got that number, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
It was quite a lot of work, which was actually why we found out that we needed to do this.
So the answer to that question was yes, we have that number, but not on us, in our heads. And we remember it as we did a bunch of cleanups that was actually really, really important to avoid a lot of tickets in our, support system after this. So yes.